Hi everybody, welcome back to Astrology, the astrology of I Am, and this week's Venus Fridays when Love Speaks. We have a special guest today who's going to talk to us about a dimension of Venus that we have not dealt with so far. You know that Venus represents love and relationships, but some of you may need to be aware that Venus also represents money and our values and our self-worth and how we exchange energy with others in the material realm. So yes, we need to talk about money. Everyone wants it, everyone needs it, and we have to find ways to approach it and deal with it that are healthy and that are useful, not just for ourselves, but for our community. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce a special guest. His name is Derek Holt. He's a community activist, he's an up-and-coming author, and he has some tremendous insights into the whole realm of money. So please check this interview out, and I will see you on the other side. Derek Holt, good to see you, man. Thank you for being on the program.
Yeah, good seeing you again. Just saw you a few days ago.
Yeah, man, we had a great time. You educated me, you schooled me, you gave me the information that made me see that I got a lot of growing to do in the financial realm. And so I just felt it was important to share this with the audience because so many of us don't have the depth of understanding that we should have for dealing with financial issues. And finances are everything, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people, when you don't have money, you want to destroy capitalism. And when you have it, you're all in. So, but we have to find a even balance. I had a friend of mine tell me a phrase I will never forget. And he says, "Get your capital without becoming a capitalist." And I think that's a great strategy, to think about moving forward financially without, treading on people.
Especially since it's not likely that the capitalist system is going anywhere anytime soon, right?
No, it's not going anywhere whatsoever.
Despite well-meaning people. And I don't know if sometimes people who say those kind of things really understand how deep these financial structures are and how long they've been in place and how long people have been under the sort of domination of these structures even when they didn't even realize it.
Exactly. I mean, capitalism has been around a little less than 400 years, and before then it was mercantilism. Before then it was feudalism, and all these coming from from Europe. But the thing is, one was a segue into the next. And the same economic points can be found in all three. And so when you add, those three economic systems, you're talking about over 700 years of mainly the same system. So, but with capitalism breeds a lot of innovation. So the thing in medicine, and transportation and education. It was a necessity to build products for people. And the only way that you can make money is to provide a great service to people. And so in my family, we've had people who have cancer or, other illnesses like diabetes, which I've been a diabetic since I was 16. And because of the technology, my life is extremely great, because of this. So capitalism, it serves a good purpose. But the negative side of any economic system, it doesn't matter what it is greed. Greed is just a part of the human condition. And people, if they want to be greedy, they're going to find a way to take advantage and extract wealth, from the good intentioned people. So we can't throw away a system that's benefiting people economically, socially, educationally, and in their health and so many different other things, because of there are people who take undue advantage.
So let's go back a little bit. So you said it's capitalism has been around 400 years, and then it evolved out of mercantilism and then feudalism. That takes us about 700 years, but I would I would venture to say that in the Christian age, which from an astrological point of view, that refers to the age which we call the Age of Pisces. That goes
Exactly.
back about 2,000 years.
Yes.
So we have been under this evolving financial, under evolving financial structures for 2,000 years, but we don't seem to have learned a lot. We seem to still be in predicaments where we're not doing well financially, especially people of color. So, what is the dynamic that has pervaded this whole Piscean age that has put us in a situation where there's always somebody on top and there's always someone on the bottom?
Okay. Well, I'm not an astrologist, just a very lay person, but I do know that the age of Pisces, and Pisces itself is a water sign, and it permeates with the mindset of I believe. So here we had during the age of Pisces, the economic system was based upon water. People lived close to water, to rivers, the oceans, and shipbuilding was a major part of the Piscean age. There's a great book called The Slave Ship by Marcus Rydecker. And that movie accounts that in the Piscean age, that the ship was the greatest invention because it was able to move, economic goods around from food, to clothing, water, and it was also being fishermen. Pretty much all of the economic system and its goods and services was done on water, right? And also another inherent trait of the Piscean age was not to question what was taught. It was mass illiteracy, and then we have the development of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, all these things during the Piscean age. And all of it was centered around, I believe.
I
And
believe, and as you said, don't question, but have faith. And so there's this literal, you're describing a literal sense of people not thinking.
right,
Man, that's amazing. And this is boiling down to.
right. It's all about not thinking, without questioning, not really knowing how to think about things. We have to really ask the questions why. And so we're taught not to just ask the question why.
If we look at how that has evolved, it's no wonder we're in the situation we're in today because we've just been inheriting these attitudes, these old ways of processing how we interact and how we exchange, which is what money is about, right?
Exactly. The thing is, the time true way of any economic system is that we all need to live. And so people are going to trade a good or services for food, for water, and for housing. And it doesn't matter what economic system that, you follow, it has to be able to support those three basic needs, shelter, food, and water. And so people try to make it seem like it's rocket science, and it's really not. And so even a good point, even before the Piscean age, and it was, destroyed, was Kemet, or we know it as Egypt. It was the greatest economic superpower power for 18,000 years on this planet. And it was all developed and controlled by diaspora Africans, the people that look very much like you and me.
You mean we had money at one point? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we were literally bathing in gold.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Is that what the land of milk and honey is all about?
Yeah, well, even in Kemet, we talk about the pharaohs, or that's the European name, but the Subetes, which is the indigenous name of the language that's used to depict what we now call a pharaoh. But they also was known as the gold kings, because they ruled over such large wealth and gold deposits in their territories.
Is that what the brothers who have these gold grills in their mouth, they're making reference to the ancient days?
Well,
what can we do to get money, to get back to a state where we can have that consciousness where we are bathing in gold again? What are some of the things that we need to be thinking about to get to that place where it's no longer just a historical footnote, but something we can actually manifest? What does that look like?
Well, I think that comes to where we are now in the Age of Aquarius, because the Age of Aquarius is air sign, and then the dominant point in the Age of Aquarius is I know, not that I believe. So if we look at in the last 20 years, how many bookstores have been created or people operating? We can just look at Amazon, who started off as originally just selling books, right? And books give you information. And then now we're on the internet, transmitting and talking, over air, basically, right? And so now the economic power of the Age of Aquarius is air. And so we have a lot of people using such platforms as on YouTube, Instagram, that they're able to reach mass quantities of people, with information, with selling products, and so on and so forth, or even educating. With this whole thing with coronavirus, we have used the air to educate our children and our young people who are in college. And so it's here, is that the universe is going to deliver to you what you need to be able to sustain yourself. But we have to open our eyes and see that it's here, that is a foundational roadmap for us to use. So, a part of this air economic system, we have travel and commerce by air. As I mentioned, we have, radio and TV, that's operated over air signals. And as I alluded to earlier, we have, places that we can go that we didn't have before, just to gain literacy on many different subjects that we didn't have before.
And a part of this, if I can interrupt, is powered by technology. So we're talking about innovation and ideas too, correct?
Correct. Because the technology undergirds the technological advancements. And pretty much all of these advancements, the foundational premise of it is air.
And air is thought and ideas. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. As opposed to the previous age, which was feeling, emotion, faith, now we're evolving to a place where we're theoretically going to be using more thought, more processing, more communication, and all the things that have to do with the mind.
Correct.
But yet we still are not in a place where collectively we are rich. So if we're talking about the evolution of capitalism and the evolution of structures and formats and platforms to create more exchange, which could potentially be more wealth, how do we harness it so that we can take advantage of it so that we're not always on the bottom? I mean, even in this pandemic, the top 1%, I think the figure was they tripled their income over the course of just the past year. How do we make that something that can work for the people that are on the bottom?
Well, I think the first thing is this: we have to do what happened with the changing of the age. We have to change. We have to stop, trying to hold on to the Piscean age of, I believe, and have faith. And we have to move forward with, that I know, and move forward with confidence. And so I think that's the biggest thing that we need to do. We need to not shed old traditions, but we need to incorporate, new ideas and new traditions.
Such as?
Well, personally, I think like an old tradition is Christmas. And what I mean by that, we get together and people of the Christian faith, associated faiths, they'll come and they'll celebrate, the birthday of Jesus, so to speak. But have we ever thought about, when we use this time to get together, that we take the time and we talk about getting our financial health together?
What, man? We talk about Christmas is when you spend money. It's not time when you are you trying to change the whole paradigm, right?
Well, if we're really trying to get more people into living comfortable and not struggling, and then that's what we have to do. We got to change the paradigm.
And so you're saying one of the ways is to collectively get together and talk about investing, talk about how to raise capital, talk about how to support each other, as opposed to getting together and exchanging gifts. Am I understanding you?
I'll say in addition to.
In addition to, okay.
Yeah, in addition to.
So get together, exchange gifts, and then talk about how to make things better.
Exactly. That's what I.
After we pay those January bills.
Well, the thing is, if we really change our mindsets, then we'll know that the information is really more valuable than a gift. So maybe we will not give people, a present, but we'll just give them an investment tip.
So you're literally saying we can use old rituals or traditions as the foundation for creating new levels of understanding, right?
Exactly.
And do you think that people would be open to something like that? I mean, how do you get that mindset how do you even crack the door so that mindset has a possibility of expanding and growing?
Well, we have to, look at, there have to be risk takers, and not just risk takers financially, but risk takers in their character, right? You're going to put your character on the line to prove to people in your family and your friends that this is a worthy cause, even though that they may resist it. And being consistent, having these consistent conversations, and then be able to come back and measure it with some type of success. Say that, We got together 5 years ago. We started having these conversations, and we use every holiday, from Christmas, New Year's, Easter, Memorial Day, and so on and so forth. And we sit down and we had a conversation, and we took half hours in each of these family gatherings, and we talked about an investment idea or opening up a business. And each time we just moved it forward. And as a result, 5 years later, we started a business, and now our business is profitable. And once people start seeing those things and start saying, I do remember that they were over in the corner, on the 4th of July, eating some hot wings and, some potato salad and playing dominoes. And they were having these conversations, doing all that in between.
Wow.
So it is changing the paradigm, and then incorporating, new conversations and new thoughts, and being consistent with it. It has to pay dividends.
It's interesting because, one of the things that we do when we get around our friends and family during the holidays is we complain a lot, and we say, oh, if Oprah and Denzel and Tyler and Quincy, and if all those people got together and did something, we could have something. But you're saying we don't have to wait for the people who are at the very top of the ladder to do something. We could actually start doing something ourselves. Those of us who are on not so high a rung on the ladder can actually create something by working together.
Yes, exactly. As of right now, there's Black America is missing about 6 million jobs. Okay. And currently, 94% of all African Americans work for another ethnicity. Okay. So what if we went and we started businesses and we employed, another 6 million African Americans?
I mean, I hear you saying that, but that number seems so big. Like, what kind of things could we do to even put a dent in that number? What types of businesses can really sustain and grow to the point that we could actually begin to see some inroads in that kind of idea? Like, what do you suggest? Like, give us some ideas of the kind of businesses that we could create starting where we are now, not in some future, if we had a bunch of capital kind of idea. What are the things that we can start thinking about doing now that we can actually take steps towards?
Okay. First of all, it's a mindset change, the first thing. Then I'll get to some actual functionality in that.
Okay.
The thing is, people who have a lot of money, they want to make their money by lending it. If they're not lending it, they're not making money. So there's people who want to lend money to you. But if you think nobody's going to lend money to you, you're not going to go look for it. And if you're not going to look for it, then you're never going to have the capital to start a business.
That reminds me, when we finish this interview, can I borrow a couple of dollars? No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, man.
But the second thing with that, once we really understand these principles, and let me back up a little bit before I go to the next thing with that. YouTube is the biggest university on the planet. It's not just there, just to see, a church service or a music video or the latest gossip. Don't you know that Yale University has about 60% of all its courses on YouTube?
Whoa, I didn't know that. I should know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there's a plethora of information about economics on YouTube, but we have to change our appetite, if we really want to, be a little more wealthier, then we have to start acting like it, and we have to go and get the education. So, and the education now is right in our homes. We don't have to drive to a campus or, enroll enroll in some type of program and pay a big tuition, to learn about economics. It's right at our fingertips. It's right coming through the air. So some of the practical things where people create massive amounts of wealth is just the basic staple things that people need. People need gas for their cars, or here in California, people need a charging station, for their electric vehicle. And that's something that everybody needs. So everybody needs that. So that's one thing. Everybody has to eat. So this is developing, places that we can eat, for as being a grocery store or some type of restaurant. And the thing with that, we have to really not ask, but we have to start demanding of our clergy to be an active participant in changing the mindsets of his parishioners, to say, yes, we have parishioners who are starting these businesses and we need you to go support them.
Uh-oh. Now, I hear you saying the people got to have a mindset change, but now you're saying the leaders of the community have to have a mindset change. And do you really think we're going to get people who are professing that the most important thing, and I shouldn't joke about this, but there are a lot of ministers who feel like it's their duty to talk about what's going to save souls, and they see that they believe that their role is evangelical and not to be involving themselves in the affairs of Caesar. They will say, give unto Caesar what he's due. They don't want you to be tax evaders. So they do acknowledge you got to give Caesar what he's due. But beyond that, many, not all, but many of the religious leaders are more concerned with the spiritual soul aspect than they are with the economic material aspect. And will we ever get to a place where the religious leaders, the clergy, will be taking an active role? Do we even need to look to them to provide the active leadership, or should we start a grassroots movement where people begin to understand for themselves through community organizing whether or not they can actually move to do some things? It seems like a lot to say that the clergy is going to have a mindset change and go from soul saving to putting money in people's pockets.
Yeah, but anything that's worth doing is going to be hard.
Okay.
Right. And, and just, like a side note, it's to fight, against the pushback that Marxism or Karl Marx was giving to the industrial age. People were getting maimed in these factories and working long hours and so on and so forth. And so with the industrialists, what they had to do, they had to make people literate so they could come to work and not be maimed or hurt or even killed at a job. This is the very reason why we got the education system in the country that we have, right? So the thing is that we went from a nation in the 1800s to only the very few wealthy, privileged people, went to school, to, less than 100 years, then you had public schools where it was mandated that you go, right? We have to start looking at things in a microwaved mindset, that we all want things very fast and quick. But we have to know that, things that takes time to change. So even though, yes, it may seem daunting to even sacrilegious to ask the clergy to change. They can change and they need to change. But even if they accept the change, the transition to a new paradigm is going to take a while. Just like it took over 100 years once the industrial age came and they decided they needed to educate, its workers for it to get to a public school system. And so now, after we have the foundation of a public school system, it has its flaws, undoubtedly, but it has, produced, more wealth and increased the standard of living than any other mechanism in the history of mankind. So we have to take on that challenge. So if it was done once, it can be done again. And actually, we're not even asking people to do anything really major. We're not asking people to build, classroom and build chairs and come up with money to fund everything that goes to a classroom. We already have that in the church. The biggest thing that African Americans own is real estate in churches. And according to the Pew Institute for Research, back in 2011, they stated that it was 86,000 Black churches in the United States.
Whoa.
Right. So we have the facilities. The only thing that's missing, and along with that, we have the chairs, we have the PA systems, we have the video, we have everything we need. The only thing we need is one thing, and that's just a change of mind. And if we have enough people to demand that the clergy change its mindset, then either they're going to be in business or out of business. Because then we have to realize that everything is made up. So we can make up who we want to be our leaders. And if the clergy no longer wants to be our leaders, that's fine. We'll just go get someone else that's going to use the real estate and have a change of mind and use that system to educate us.
Wow. So if I am wanting to be wealthy, should I focus on getting wealthy myself, or should I focus on getting wealthy with a group? Should I have a collective goal for wealth, or should I have an individual goal? Because I like everything you're saying, but at the same time, I'm not really sure who I can really band together with to create some sort of movement or some sort of collective energy towards financial success and growth. So in some ways, it feels safer to go it alone and, get myself in a position and then maybe help someone else after I've already established myself. Well, I mean, I'm using these metaphors to ask this broader question of, should we think in terms of personal wealth, or should we think in terms of developing a collective mechanism for us all to grow together in stages, as you suggest?
No, I think it has to be both. It has to be both, because in our circles, our mindsets are so entrenched into a Piscean age and way of thinking that not everybody has come out of that yet. And so if we wait for everyone to, to advance their thoughts and their thinking, then we may miss some critical opportunities. We have to really learn and understand that being human is also part of competition, because we're trying to compete for resources. We're trying to compete for the water, the food. We're trying to compete for, the habiliment. We can go back as far as we can go back. And that's the constant in being human, is the need to survive. And a lot of times that survival is based upon competition. And so if we realize it or not, we have other communities that are really going after and really competing very hard. to ensure that the people in their communities have, a certain standard of living, so everyone can be comfortable. And so sometimes we have to go forward by ourselves, but along the way, as people wake up and they grow and we forge partnerships, then we can do that collectively as well.
So let me ask you this: there was in 2004 there was a big controversy. Bill Cosby gave a speech. I think it was on the anniversary of Brown versus the Board of Education, and he spoke some people thought harshly, but he spoke very passionately about the need for black people, especially black people who didn't have means, to use their money more wisely. He actually gave a critique of a portion of the black community, saying, stop buying these $100 tennis shoes. Stop doing this, stop doing that. You're spending all this money getting your hair done. You're spending all this money on pleasure, and you're not thriving because of it. So in one sense, he spoke some valuable information in terms of financial solvency, but on another level, he was being critical of the victims of a system that has perpetuated that somebody's always on top and someone's always on the bottom. It's a lot to deal with. How do we tell people who are going to work every day and barely making enough to get by that they can't have some pleasure? I mean, one of the things that we all need, in addition to the necessities, is a feeling of peace, a feeling of I can just enjoy myself even a little bit. So if I go out and spend money on things that are frivolous, but they make me happy, how do you make people, what do you say to people who are saying, man, I work hard for my money, I'm going to do what I want with it. Damn you telling me, what I should be doing for the collective, or to be on a different level, or whatever. How do you address all of those conflicting needs that we have?
Well, also a condition of being human. Not everybody thinks alike, and we have to accept that. And so the people who really desire to move forward and to project themselves into the future by way of their children, their grandchildren, great grandchildren, those people.
When you say project themselves into the future, be more specific. What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that I think we all, want to live. I think that's how the concept of heaven was created. We want to live so bad, we created a concept of heaven. And we necessarily don't have any proof of that, even though personally I believe or know that life exists after this physical. But the reality of it is that, we don't know that. So projecting yourself into the future is that, for me, it means that I want my children to have a comfortable life, but there's a duality, there's a struggle to be able to have that. And so I want my great grandchildren to be fine, to be able to eat, not miss any meals, have cold water when they want it, and all those kind of things. So the way that I project myself into the future by way of my grandchildren is to pass on these lessons, to show them the hard work. And as I do that, and they follow what was good, if I'm doing something that's bad, they're not going to follow it. Thus, I cease to exist in the future. But as we remember Dr. Martin Luther King, he has projected himself into the future. And so we can project ourselves into the future, with these ideas and concepts that will benefit, not only our families, but, a broader array of people within our community, or maybe even outside of our community.
So again, I just want to ask you, give us some practical, foundational tips or steps that we can take to begin to move ourselves forward collectively and individually.
Yeah. Well, again, the basic foundation is the education. So
Okay.
we can go online, we could read the Financial Times, we can read the Wall Street Journals. The more information that we have, we can see what is coming in the future. What of, maybe the bigger industrialists that they're creating, or ideas that they have. And then that way it gives us an opportunity to invest, in these new developments in the future. But if we don't study, if we don't take the time to learn the vocabulary of investing, of wealth, of finance, and then we won't be able to invest in it. And so the thing is, there are so many different opportunities of things to invest in, but we're going to miss them if we don't take the time to educate. So I won't be embarrassed to say how big of a thing I missed out on. I had a young man, tell me back in 2011 to invest in Bitcoin. And I was like, nah, nobody's going to be trying to buy this concept. The banker's not going to let that happen. And if I had invested $1,000 in Bitcoin in 2011, now in 2021, that $1,000 investment would have been worth $11 million.
Whoa.
Okay. But I didn't do any.
So invest a tiny bit of coins back then turns into a big
right.
Big reward today.
Yeah, but I didn't educate myself. I didn't educate myself at all on it. So, and we can go pick any numbers of things that, we always say, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But once we educate ourselves on things and share the information freely, with people in our families or our friends, then we can start making these investments. And that's what, my children have done. I've been educating my children on doing this for a number of years. And, one of their cousins asked them for a stock tip. And they gave them a stock tip, and they made 3 times their money, in 6 months.
I'm going to need to put a call into your church. What about some books? Can you recommend some books that people can read to advance their knowledge?
Yeah, I think, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich with Kent. Yeah, all the classic books. And then also we can read Claude Anderson, White Wealth, Black Labor. These books tell you what we're up against. Sometimes we have to learn how to dismantle, the landmines that were created for us. And so by reading
Claude Anderson, Black Wealth.
White Wealth, Black Labor.
White Wealth, Black Labor. Claude Anderson. Okay. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich.
And then this one, I just happen to have this on my desk here. And I don't know the brother. I never met him. But he's wrote a monumental work in this book, The Black Tax, What It Costs to Be Black in America.
And what's the name? I see Rochester.
Yes.
What's the first name? Your fingers covering up.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sean Rochester, The Black Tax.
Yes.
The Cost of Being Black in America. Okay.
Yeah. And so this book explains what it costs of being Black in America, the racism, the lack of education, so on and so forth. There's an adage that says sometimes it's not how much you make, but how much you can keep. And so if we learn just how to keep more, then we'll have more. And so the way that we keep more is not falling into the landmine or booby traps that's laid by the system for us. And this book here is a great book to really understand, what those traps are and how to avoid them. And then that's going to start, bringing up other ideas. Okay, now I've learned how to avoid these landmines. So what's the next step? How do I grow? And I think the biggest thing is this reading the Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal, and studying, and just studying different forms of economics, maybe being, bonds, if it being securities, if it's, investing in a brick and mortar business, really understanding the terms and the language. So if somebody came and gave you and put an opportunity right in your face, if you don't understand the language, and the vocabulary of it, how can you actually understand it? That would be, just asking for somebody for water in China, and they tell you, and you don't understand the language, and you end up dying of thirst.
And do you sense that there is going to be a positive movement in this direction? And do you sense that people will be making strides, or what is your view of the landscape and its potential, based on where we are today and where we have come from?
Well, I'd say this: if our community doesn't get it together, that's it. The United States Census says that African Americans are currently now about 15% of the U.S. population. And their projections are that African Americans will only be 7% of the population in the year 2050, 2060. And you need a population to be able to develop an economic system, right? And so if we don't get and change our mindset, if we don't transition ourselves from a Piscean age of thinking into an Aquarius age of thinking, if we don't start demanding of our leaders to change their way of thinking, it's not a top down, it's a bottom up way of moving. If we don't do that, it's a wrap. And so the thing is, we have to understand, we talk about racism and prejudice and all these kind of things. And so we have to really understand this. When slavery started, the capturing of African bodies and transporting them on that ship over to the Western world, they didn't do that because they didn't like us. They did it for economic reasons. They had to build ships, build sails, they had to educate sailors to operate the boat. They had to, raise money for supplies. And then they had to sail from Europe to Africa, to the west coast of Africa. They had to risk their lives with malaria and other, ailments that they didn't have any resistance for. They had to sail across the Atlantic, to South, Central, and North America.
So you're saying there is no way they did that just because they didn't like us.
Correct.
That's a petty way a small-minded way of seeing
right.
how these institutions develop. They develop because there was something to gain from it financially.
Exactly. And so the way to get out of it is the same way that we were used to get into it. You have to, as the old saying goes, you have to fight fire with fire. You have to fight economics with economics, right? And right now we're underdeveloped in our education system. But that's an easy fix, because if you really desire to learn, Yale has 60% of its classes on YouTube. So it's no excuse. It's about changing your mindset. And you don't have to go with a lot of people. You can go with just a few people and you can go very far,
Man, I can't even tell you how much I appreciate you coming on and sharing this information. Is there, I know you have a book that you're working on. I know you're working on some other informational platforms, but I really can't wait until we can have you back and you can share the platforms that you've developed and the finished book that I know you're working on. So this is amazing, and I'm really proud to know that there are people like you who are out there on the leading edge, creating greater awareness, so that the people who have less can realize that there's more at stake and more that they can achieve if they just have a different mindset. This is super valuable information, Mr. Holt. Thank you so much.
Oh,
I, I'll let you have the floor to close this interview out, because I just so impressed with what you're sharing. Maybe there's another bit of information you can give us before we say goodbye.
yeah. Thank you for having me on. I greatly appreciate it. And, pretty much, I think for this segment, I think we covered, I think it's a good start. I think it's something for people to think about. Instead of, watching a Breakfast Club is good, but instead of typing that in on YouTube, just type in, Economics 101 for Yale University.
Thank you so much. And we look forward to your work coming out so that we can promote it and so that we can get this message out to as many people as possible. Thank you again so much, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I hope that you got some insight into the ways that you deal with money and the ways that we deal with money as a collective culture and community. And I hope that in some way you've been inspired to act and to give and to share information, share ideas, to put yourself in a greater financial position so that you can help others and that we can all lift each other to another level of prosperity. Yes, Venus represents more than just love, and I hope this interview today with Derek Holt has been helpful in helping us understand deeper dimensions of how we share energy with each other. So, please like and subscribe and share this video. And if you need us, you can always reach us at Astrologic Astrology on Instagram, on YouTube, and at our website, astrologicastrology.com. As always, we wish you love and peace, and we say goodbye with the Sanskrit term namaste. The spirit in me recognizes and honors the spirit in you.